Dr. Elena Martinez stood in front of the massive glass window that covered one entire wall of her new apartment. The view showed the strange purple sky of Kepler 442b, with its 3 small moons hanging like silver coins against the alien horizon. 2 weeks had passed since she arrived on this distant world, and she still felt amazed every time she looked outside. The apartment building was designed for multiple species, which meant everything looked different from what she knew on Earth. The doors were twice as tall as normal to fit the Zephyrians, who stood nearly 8 feet high. The floors had special grooves for the Thraxians, whose clawed feet needed extra grip. Even the air had a slightly different smell, though the life support systems kept it breathable for humans. Elena picked up her coffee mug and took a slow sip. The coffee was one of the few familiar things she had brought from Earth. Everything else about her new life felt like stepping into a science fiction movie that never ended. Her communication device buzzed on the kitchen counter. The small blue screen showed a message from Dr. Velthar, the Zephyrian who served as head of the Cultural Exchange Department at the Academy. The message was written in the standard galactic language that all species learned for communication. Professor Martinez, your first class begins in 2 hours. The students are very excited to meet their first human instructor. Please remember that today you will have 12 students from 4 different species. Good luck with your teaching. Elena smiled and set down her mug. She had spent months preparing for this moment back on Earth. The Galactic Education Council had chosen her, from hundreds of applicants, to be the first human exchange teacher. Her job was to teach a course called Comparative Biological Systems to young aliens who wanted to learn about different life forms across the galaxy. She walked to her bedroom and opened the closet. Inside hung several outfits that the Academy had provided. They were designed to be comfortable and respectful to all species. Elena chose a simple blue outfit that looked professional, but not too formal. She wanted to make a good first impression, but she also wanted to seem approachable. As she got dressed, Elena thought about what she knew about her students. The class would have 3 Zephyrians, 4 Thraxians, 3 Vortani, and 2 students, from a species called the Kelleri. Each species was completely different from the others. The Zephyrians were tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to glow slightly in certain lights. Their eyes were much larger than human eyes and could see colors that humans could not even imagine. They were known across the galaxy for being very intelligent and logical, but they sometimes had trouble understanding emotions. The Thraxians looked like a cross between humans and insects. They had hard shells covering their bodies and large eyes made up of thousands of tiny parts. Their faces had mandibles instead of regular mouths, which made their speech sound like clicking and buzzing. They were excellent at mathematics and engineering, but they found art and literature confusing. The Vortani were perhaps the strangest of all. They looked like large, clear blobs that could change shape when they needed to. Instead of speaking, with sounds they communicated by changing colors across their transparent bodies. Different colors meant different words or feelings. Elena had spent weeks learning to read their basic color language. The Kelleri were the most similar to humans in appearance, but they were much smaller, only about 4 feet tall. They had fur covering their entire bodies and large ears that could move independently. They were known for being very curious and asking lots of questions about everything. Elena finished getting dressed and walked back to the kitchen. She opened the small refrigerator and looked at her breakfast supplies. The Academy had managed to get her some foods from Earth, though they were expensive to transport across the galaxy. She had eggs, bacon, bread, butter, orange juice, and her precious coffee. She looked at the clock on the wall. She had planned to eat breakfast before leaving for the Academy, but the transport system had been running slowly all week. If she waited to eat at home, she might be late for her first class. Elena decided she would pack her breakfast and eat it quickly before the students arrived. She scrambled 3 eggs in a pan, fried 4 strips of bacon until they were crispy, and toasted 2 pieces of bread. The familiar smells of cooking food made her feel less homesick. She packed everything in containers along with a thermos of hot coffee and a glass of orange juice. Elena gathered her teaching materials and put them in her bag along with the breakfast containers. She had prepared a presentation about different types of biological systems and how various species had evolved to survive in their environments. She planned to use examples from Earth, Zephyria, Thrax, Vortan, and Kellar to show how life could develop in completely different ways. The transport tube to the academy took 15 minutes. Elena sat in the human-sized seat and watched the alien landscape pass by the windows. The buildings on Kepler 442b were built in strange shapes that looked like they might fall over. But she had learned that they were actually perfectly stable. The Zephyrian architects had designed them to work with the planet's lower gravity and stronger winds. When Elena arrived at the academy, she walked through the main entrance hall. The building was enormous, with ceilings that reached up several stories. Students from different species moved through the halls, talking in various languages and communication methods. Some spoke with sounds, others with colors, and a few used hand gestures that Elena did not understand. She found her classroom on the 3rd floor. It was a large room with specialized seating for each species. The Zephyrian seats were tall and narrow. The Thraxian seats had special supports for their shells. The Vortani had shallow pools instead of chairs, which they could flow into and maintain their shape. The Kellari seats were small and had soft cushions. Elena set up her presentation equipment and arranged her teaching materials on the desk. She looked at the clock and realized the students would arrive in just a few minutes. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she had not eaten breakfast yet. She opened her bag and took out the containers of food. The eggs were still warm and the bacon smelled delicious. Elena decided she would eat quickly before the students came in. She opened the first container and picked up her fork, ready to start her meal. Just as she took her first bite of scrambled eggs, the classroom door opened and her students began to file in. Elena looked up from her container of scrambled eggs as 12 alien students entered the classroom. Her fork was halfway to her mouth, loaded with fluffy yellow eggs. She had 2 choices: put down her breakfast and go hungry for the next 3 hours, or continue eating while introducing herself to the class. Her growling stomach made the decision for her. She swallowed the bite of eggs and smiled at her students. The 3 Zephyrians walked with long, graceful steps to their tall seats. Their large eyes immediately focused on Elena and the open food container on her desk. The 4 Thraxians clicked across the floor, their clawed feet making sharp sounds on the hard surface. Their compound eyes seemed to track every movement Elena made. The 3 Vortani flowed into their shallow pools, their transparent bodies shifting from a calm blue color to a more curious green as they settled in. The 2 Kellari students climbed onto their small chairs, their large ears twitching as they picked up the unfamiliar smells coming from Elena's breakfast. Elena decided to act naturally. She took another bite of eggs while standing up to address the class. The yellow, chunky mixture disappeared into her mouth as she chewed and spoke at the same time. "Good morning, everyone. I am Professor Martinez, and I am very happy to be here with you today." She paused to swallow, then continued. "This is my first time teaching students from so many different worlds, so this will be a learning experience for all of us." One of the Zephyrian students, a tall female with particularly bright blue skin, raised her long arm. Elena noticed that all 3 Zephyrians were staring directly at her mouth and the food container. "Yes, what is your question?" Elena asked, taking another forkful of eggs. "Professor Martinez," the Zephyrian said in her musical voice, "are you consuming biological matter while speaking to us?" Elena paused with the fork near her mouth. She had not expected this question. "Yes, this is my breakfast. I did not have time to eat before class, so I hope you do not mind if I eat while we talk." The Zephyrian's eyes grew even larger, which Elena had not thought was possible. "You are consuming what appears to be processed organic material. Is this a normal behavior for your species?" Elena looked down at her eggs, then back at the class. All 12 students were now watching her with intense attention. She realized that they might never have seen a human eat before. Their own eating habits were probably very different from hers. "Yes, humans eat food several times each day. This is normal for us." Elena took another bite to demonstrate. "These are called eggs. They come from birds on my home planet." The clicking sounds from the Thraxian students grew louder and more rapid. One of them, whose shell had dark stripes across it, made a series of sharp clicks that Elena's translation device turned into words. "Professor Martinez, You are telling us that you consume the reproductive output of another species? The unborn, offspring of flying creatures? Elena stopped chewing. When the Thraxian put it that way, her breakfast did sound rather alarming. She swallowed carefully and tried to explain. Well, yes, but the eggs we eat are not fertilized. They would not have become baby birds. They are just food. She realized this explanation was not making things better when all three Vortani suddenly changed from green to a bright orange color that her training had taught her meant shock or alarm. Elena decided to continue with her meal and hoped the students would get used to it. She set down the empty egg container and picked up the container with her bacon. The 4 strips of meat were still warm and crispy. She bit into the first piece, enjoying the salty, smoky flavor. The reaction from her students was immediate and intense. The Thraxians' clicking became so rapid it sounded like machinery. The Zephyrians all leaned forward in their seats, their large eyes fixed on Elena's mouth. The Vortani cycled through several different colors very quickly, settling on a deep red that Elena was pretty sure meant distress. One of the Kellery students, a small creature with golden fur, stood up on his chair. His voice was high and squeaky. When he spoke, Professor Martinez, after consuming the reproductive cells of one species, you are now consuming what appears to be the muscle tissue of a completely different species. Are you performing some kind of ritual? Elena looked down, at the bacon in her hand. She had never thought of it as muscle tissue before, but technically, that was exactly what it was. She took another bite while she thought about how to respond. This is called bacon. It comes from pigs, which are animals on Earth. Humans eat meat from many different animals. This is also normal for us. The Zephyrian who had spoken first raised her hand again. Her voice sounded strained when she asked, Professor Martinez, in the span of just a few minutes, you have consumed the reproductive material of one species followed immediately by the flesh of another species. Is this typical feeding behavior for humans? Elena nodded while chewing her bacon. Yes, this is a normal breakfast. Most humans eat several different types of food at each meal. She finished the first strip of bacon and reached for the second one. As she bit into it, she noticed that all 12 students were sitting in complete silence, watching her every move. Their attention was so focused that Elena began to feel uncomfortable. The second Thraxian student, whose shell was a lighter color than the first, made a series of clicks that translated as, Professor Martinez, do all humans possess such diverse biological processing capabilities? Can your species truly derive nutrition from multiple different life forms simultaneously? Elena paused with the bacon halfway to her mouth. She was starting to realize that her simple breakfast was having a much bigger impact on her students than she had expected. They seemed to think that eating eggs and bacon together was some kind of amazing feat. Yes, humans can eat many different types of food. Our bodies are designed to process plants, fruits, vegetables, and meat from various animals. Elena took another bite of bacon. We call this being omnivores. It means we can eat almost anything. The students exchanged looks, sounds, and color changes with each other. Elena could tell they were communicating, but she could not understand what they were saying to each other. She finished her second strip of bacon and reached for her toast. The bread was golden brown and still warm. Elena had spread butter on it before packing her breakfast, and now the butter had melted into the bread. She took a large bite, enjoying the simple taste of bread and butter. This new food item caused another wave of reactions from her students. The Vortani began flashing different colors so rapidly that Elena could not keep track of what they meant. The Kellari students' ears were standing straight up, and they were making soft, chittering sounds to each other. Elena was beginning to understand that her breakfast was turning into an unplanned lesson about human biology. She decided to embrace it and turn it into a teaching moment. Elena finished her bite of toast and looked at her students. The classroom was completely silent except for the soft clicking sounds from the Thraxians and the gentle humming of the air circulation system. She could feel 12 pairs of eyes, watching her every movement, though the Thraxians technically had thousands of tiny eyes in their compound vision systems. She decided to address their obvious curiosity directly. I can see that you have questions about human eating habits. Would you like to discuss this while I finish my breakfast? One of the Vortani students immediately flashed bright yellow, which Elena remembered meant excitement or eagerness. The student's voice came through a speaker system that translated the color patterns into words. Professor Martinez, we have many questions. First, how does your digestive system process such different biological materials at the same time? The reproductive cells you consumed first require different enzymes than the muscle tissue you ate second. Elena took another bite of toast while she thought about the answer. Human stomachs produce acid and enzymes that can break down many different types of food. We evolved to eat whatever we could find, so our bodies became very good at processing different things. The striped Thraxian student clicked rapidly before speaking. Evolved to eat whatever you could find? This suggests that humans are opportunistic feeders who can consume any available organic matter. Is this correct? Elena nodded. Yes, that is mostly right. Humans can eat plants, fruits, vegetables, grains, and meat from many different animals. We can even eat some things that other species might find poisonous. This statement caused an immediate reaction throughout the classroom. The Zephyrians all straightened up in their seats, their glowing skin becoming brighter. The Vortani cycled through several colors quickly before settling on orange, which meant surprise. The Kellery students made high-pitched chirping sounds to each other. Elena reached for her glass of orange juice. The bright orange liquid caught the light as she lifted it to her mouth. She took a long drink, enjoying the sweet and slightly sour taste. The golden-furred Kellery student stood up again. Professor Martinez, after consuming solid matter from multiple species, you are now drinking what appears to be a brightly colored liquid. Is this also biological material from another life form? Elena looked at the orange juice in her glass. Yes, this is juice made from oranges, which are fruits that grow on trees on Earth. The orange color comes from the fruit itself. The second Zephyrian student, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. Professor Martinez, you have now consumed reproductive cells, muscle tissue, processed plant matter, and liquid extracted from tree fruit. Each of these requires different biological processes to digest. How is this possible? Elena set down her glass and smiled. The human digestive system is very complex. We have different organs that work together to break down food. Our stomachs use acid, our intestines absorb nutrients, and our liver helps process everything. She picked up her thermos of coffee. Steam rose from the dark liquid when she opened it. The rich smell of coffee filled the air around her desk. Elena poured some into her cup and took a sip of the hot drink. The reaction to the coffee was the strongest yet. All four Thraxian students began clicking so rapidly that their translation devices could not keep up. The Vortani flashed bright red, which Elena knew meant alarm or fear. The Zephyrians leaned back in their seats, their large eyes wider than ever. The light-colored Thraxian student managed to make his clicks slow enough for translation. Professor Martinez, you are now consuming a hot, dark liquid that appears to be completely different from all previous substances. Are you certain this is safe for your biological systems? Elena laughed, which seemed to surprise her students even more. This is coffee. It is made from beans that grow on plants. Many humans drink coffee every day. It helps us wake up and feel alert. The first Vortani student flashed several colors before speaking. Professor Martinez, you described consuming this substance daily, along with all the other materials we have observed. Do all humans engage in such complex multi-species consumption regularly? Elena nodded while taking another sip of coffee. Yes, most humans eat 3 meals every day, and each meal usually includes several different types of food. For example, a typical dinner might include meat, vegetables, bread, and maybe fruit for dessert. The students began talking to each other in their various forms of communication. The Thraxians clicked rapidly among themselves. The Zephyrians spoke in their musical language. The Vortani flashed different color patterns at each other. The Kellery made chittering and squeaking sounds. Elena could tell they were discussing what they had learned about human eating habits. She finished her coffee and looked at the time. They had spent almost 30 minutes talking about her breakfast, and she still had not started her planned lesson. The first Zephyrian student raised her hand again. Professor Martinez, we have been discussing your feeding behavior, and we have reached a conclusion. Humans appear to be the most biologically adaptable species we have ever encountered. Your ability to process multiple different life forms simultaneously suggests that humans are apex biological processors. Elena blinked in surprise. Apex biological processors? I think you might be making this sound more impressive than it really is. Eating breakfast is very normal for humans. The striped Thraxian student clicked excitedly. Professor Martinez, normal for humans perhaps, but extraordinary for most other species. On my homeworld, we consume only one type of liquid nutrient that provides all our needs. The idea of processing solid matter from multiple sources is beyond our capabilities. One of the Kalari students added, on Keller, we eat only specific nuts and fruits that grow in our forests. We cannot digest anything else without becoming very sick. The first Vortani student flashed blue and green. Vortani absorb energy directly from the radiation of our sun. We do not consume physical matter at all. What you have done this morning would be impossible for any member of our species. Elena was beginning to understand why her students found her breakfast so fascinating. Each of their species had very specific dietary requirements, while humans could eat almost anything. What seemed normal to her was actually quite remarkable when compared to their experiences. She looked around the classroom at her students. They were all still focused on her with intense interest. Elena realized that she had accidentally given them a demonstration of human adaptability that was more impressive than any lesson she had planned. The second Zephyrian student spoke again. Professor Martinez, if humans can consume such diverse biological materials, what other capabilities does your species possess? Are there other ways in which humans demonstrate such remarkable adaptability? Elena smiled and packed up her empty breakfast containers. She had finished eating, but the discussion was just beginning. Her students wanted to know more about humans, and she was happy to tell them. However, she was starting to realize that every answer she gave seemed to make humans sound more impressive than she had ever thought they were. Elena walked to the front of the classroom and activated the large display screen. She had planned to teach about different biological systems, but her students seemed much more interested in learning about human biology specifically. She decided to change her lesson plan. Since you are all curious about human eating habits, let me show you something, Elena said. She pulled up a diagram of the human digestive system on the screen. The image showed the mouth, stomach, intestines, and other organs involved in processing food. The students all leaned forward to get a better look. The Zephyrians' large eyes seemed to glow brighter as they studied the diagram. The Thraxians made soft clicking sounds of interest. The Vortani shifted to a bright green color that meant curiosity and learning. This is how humans process food, Elena explained, pointing to different parts of the diagram. Food goes into our mouth, where we chew it with our teeth. Then it travels down to our stomach, where strong acid breaks it down further. She pointed to the next part of the system. From the stomach, food moves into our intestines. This is where our body takes out all the nutrients we need. Different parts of our intestines are designed to handle different types of food. The golden-furred calorie student raised his small hand. Professor Martinez, this system appears very complex. How many different types of biological matter can it process? Elena thought about the question. Humans can eat thousands of different foods. We eat many types of meat from different animals. We eat hundreds of varieties of fruits and vegetables. We eat grains, nuts, dairy products, and even some things that other species might consider unusual. She opened another file on her computer and projected it onto the screen. It was a food pyramid that showed the different types of foods humans should eat each day. The pyramid had sections for grains, vegetables, fruits, proteins, and dairy products. The sight of the food pyramid caused immediate reactions from all the students. The Thraxians began clicking so rapidly that their individual sounds blended together into a continuous buzzing noise. The Vortani flashed between red and orange so quickly that they looked like they were strobing. The Zephyrians all stood up from their seats, their tall bodies swaying slightly as they stared at the screen. The first Zephyrian student spoke in a voice that sounded strained. Professor Martinez, this diagram suggests that humans should consume materials from multiple biological categories every single day. Is this a recommendation or a requirement? Elena nodded. It is a strong recommendation. Humans need different nutrients to stay healthy, and we get these nutrients from different types of food. If we only ate one type of food, we would become sick. The striped Thraxian student made a series of sharp clicks. Professor Martinez, you are telling us that humans must consume diverse biological matter to survive? That your species has evolved to require multi-source nutrition? Yes, that is correct, Elena replied. We need proteins from meat or other sources. We need vitamins from fruits and vegetables. We need carbohydrates from grains. We need calcium from dairy products. Each type of food gives us something different that our bodies need. Elena pulled up another image on the screen. This one showed a typical human meal with meat, vegetables, bread, and a glass of milk. This is what many humans eat for dinner. As you can see, it includes several different types of food, just like my breakfast did. The second Vortani student flashed bright yellow before speaking. Professor Martinez, if humans require such diverse nutrition, how do you obtain all these different biological materials? Do you hunt multiple species? Do you cultivate numerous plant varieties? Elena smiled. Humans have become very good at producing food. We raise animals like cows, pigs, and chickens for meat. We grow many different crops for fruits, vegetables, and grains. We have farms and factories that produce the food we need. She showed them pictures of farms, cattle ranches, and food processing facilities. The students stared at the images of vast fields of grain, large herds of cattle, and huge greenhouses full of vegetables. The light-colored Thraxian student clicked slowly. Professor Martinez, these images suggest that humans have organized entire ecosystems to support their nutritional requirements. You have domesticated multiple species and cultivated numerous plant varieties specifically to feed your population. Elena had never thought of human agriculture in those terms before, but the Thraxian was right. Yes, humans have been farming for thousands of years. We grow or raise almost everything we eat. The second Zephyrian student spoke next. Professor Martinez, the scale of biological manipulation required to support human nutrition is remarkable. Your species has essentially restructured multiple ecosystems to serve as food production systems. Elena realized that her students were amazed not just by what humans could eat, but by how humans had organized their entire civilization to support their dietary needs. She pulled up statistics about global food production. Humans produce billions of tons of food every year, she explained. We grow crops on millions of acres of land. We raise billions of animals for food. We have ships that catch fish from oceans all over our planet. The numbers on the screen showed wheat production, corn harvests, cattle populations, and fishing industry statistics. The students studied the information in silence for several minutes. Finally, the first Kalari student spoke. Professor Martinez, these numbers indicate that human food production operates on a planetary scale. Your entire species collaborates to ensure adequate nutrition for everyone? Elena nodded. Yes, we have global trade in food. Countries that grow rice trade with countries that raise cattle. Places that catch fish trade with places that grow fruits. The whole planet works together to feed everyone. The third Vortani student, who had been quiet until now, flashed several colors rapidly before speaking. Professor Martinez, we are beginning to understand that human nutritional requirements have shaped your entire civilization. Your cities, your transportation systems, your trade networks, all exist partly to support your need for diverse biological nutrition. Elena paused. She had never thought about human civilization in that way, but the Vortani student was right. Roads carried food from farms to cities, ships transported food across oceans, stores sold food from around the world. Much of human society was built around the need to feed everyone. I suppose that is true, Elena said. Humans do organize a lot of our activities around food production and distribution. The students began talking among themselves again. Elena could tell they were processing this new information about human society. She realized that her simple breakfast had led to a discussion about human biology, human agriculture, and human civilization. The second Thraxian student clicked for attention. Professor Martinez, we have learned that humans are not just capable of processing diverse biological matter, but that your entire species has evolved complex social and technological systems to support this capability. This suggests that humans are not just apex biological processors, but apex ecosystem managers. Elena looked at her students with new understanding. What seemed normal to her was extraordinary to them. Her breakfast had revealed something about humans that she had never fully appreciated before. The class period was almost over, but none of the students seemed ready to leave. They continued asking questions about human eating habits, food production, and biological capabilities. Elena looked at the clock and realized she had spent the entire first lesson talking about her breakfast instead of teaching her planned curriculum. The first Zephyrian student stood up from her tall seat. "Professor Martinez, we would like permission to share what we have learned today with other students and faculty members. The information about human biological and social capabilities is remarkable." Elena felt a small worry in her stomach. "What exactly do you plan to tell them?" The striped Thraxian student clicked excitedly. "We will report that humans are apex biological processors who can consume materials from multiple species simultaneously. We will explain that human society has evolved complex systems to support these extraordinary nutritional requirements." Elena realized that her students were about to spread a very dramatic version of what had actually been a normal breakfast. "Wait, I think you might be making this sound more impressive than it really is. Eating eggs and bacon is very ordinary for humans." The golden-furred Kalari student shook his head. "Professor Martinez, what is ordinary for humans appears to be extraordinary for most other species. We must share this information with the academic community." The bell rang to signal the end of class. The students gathered their materials and began filing out of the classroom. As they left, Elena could hear them talking excitedly to each other in their various languages. The Thraxians were clicking rapidly, the Zephyrians were speaking in musical tones, and the Vortani were flashing bright colors. Elena packed up her teaching materials and her empty breakfast containers. She walked slowly toward the faculty lounge, thinking about what had just happened. She had accidentally turned a simple meal into a lesson about human evolution, biology, and civilization. When she entered the faculty lounge, several alien professors looked up from their work. Dr. Velthar, the Zephyrian department head, approached her with his large eyes focused intently on her face. "Professor Martinez, I have already received reports from students about your first class. They are claiming that you demonstrated remarkable biological capabilities. Is this accurate?" Elena set down her bag and looked around the lounge. Other faculty members were listening to the conversation. "I just ate my breakfast while teaching. The students seemed very interested in human eating habits." Dr. Velthar's skin glowed brighter. "The students report that you consumed reproductive cells, muscle tissue, processed plant matter, and liquid extracts from multiple species in a single feeding session. They describe this as evidence of extraordinary biological processing capabilities." Elena sighed. "I ate scrambled eggs, bacon, toast, orange juice, and coffee. It was just a normal breakfast." Professor Kethrin, a Thraxian who taught mathematics, made clicking sounds of amazement. "Professor Martinez, the ability to process such diverse biological materials simultaneously is not normal for most species. On Thrax, we consume only liquid nutrients. The idea of processing solid matter from multiple sources is beyond our biological capabilities." Dr. Yelnova, a Vortani chemistry professor, flashed green and blue colors. "Professor Martinez, your students also report that humans have organized planetary-scale food production systems to support these nutritional requirements. They describe farms, ranches, and global trade networks dedicated to providing diverse biological matter for human consumption." Elena realized that the story was already growing beyond what had actually happened in her classroom. Humans do farm and trade food globally, but many species probably do similar things. Professor Kethrin clicked rapidly. "Professor Martinez, most species have very simple nutritional requirements. Thraxians consume one type of liquid. Zephyrians eat crystalline formations. Vortani absorb radiation. The complexity of human nutritional systems is unlike anything we have encountered." Over the next few hours, more faculty members approached Elena with questions about human biology. Word spread quickly through the academy that the new human professor had demonstrated remarkable capabilities during her first class. By the end of the day, Elena's communication device was buzzing constantly with messages from professors, researchers, and even news reporters from other worlds. Everyone wanted to know more about human eating habits and food production systems. Dr. Velthar called Elena to his office late in the afternoon. When she arrived, she found him reviewing reports and data on his computer screen. "Professor Martinez, your first day has generated considerable interest in human biology," he said. "I have received inquiries from research institutions across the galaxy. They want to study human nutritional capabilities and food production methods." Elena sat down in the human-sized chair across from his desk. "Dr. Velthar, I think there might be some misunderstanding about what happened today. I just ate breakfast in front of my students." Dr. Velthar's large eyes focused on her. "Professor Martinez, what you consider normal breakfast behavior has revealed capabilities that most species find remarkable. Your ability to process diverse biological materials, combined with your species' complex food production systems, suggests that humans are among the most adaptable life forms in the galaxy." Elena's communication device buzzed again. She looked at the screen and saw a message from Earth. Her supervisor at the Human Exchange Program was congratulating her on successfully demonstrating human adaptability to the galactic academic community. The message explained that news of her first class had already reached Earth through the Galactic Communication Network. Scientists and diplomats were excited about the positive impression she had made on behalf of humanity. Elena looked back at Dr. Velthar. "So eating scrambled eggs and bacon has made humans famous across the galaxy?" Dr. Velthar's skin glowed. With what Elena had learned was amusement. "Professor Martinez, your breakfast has indeed made quite an impression. The galactic academic community is now very interested in studying human biology and civilization." Elena walked back to her apartment. That evening, thinking about the strange day she had experienced, she looked at the 3 moons hanging in the purple sky and wondered what would happen when she ate lunch tomorrow. Her communication device buzzed one more time. This message was from a news network that wanted to interview her about human eating habits. The subject line read, "Galaxy's most remarkable biological processor shares secrets of human nutrition." Elena laughed as she entered her apartment. She had come to this alien world to teach about biological systems. But instead she had accidentally made humans sound like the most impressive species in the galaxy. All because she had been too hungry to wait until after class to eat her breakfast. She opened her refrigerator and looked at tomorrow's breakfast ingredients. Elena realized that her next meal would probably cause another interplanetary incident. She smiled and began planning what she would eat, wondering how the galaxy would react to human lunch habits. The story of how a simple breakfast confused an entire alien class was just beginning to spread across the stars.